Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Hubble, are there any additions or changes to agenda items?
There are not.
Do we have any public comment? No. No? Okay. So we are now going to close the regular board meeting and then open the 2026 budget hearing. Mr. Hubble.
Okay, so per law, every year, this was published on Gateway over 10 days ago, which is the legal requirement. And then every year in September, we give our budget presentation, in which October, we will come back and ask for approval, pending upon any comments we may get from the community. So timeline-wise, I always like to run through that. Tonight's the public hearing. Then on October 7th, which is a week earlier than normal because of fall break, so we did move the board meeting up, is a public hearing on the proposed capital projects and bus replacement plans, and then adoption of those plans with any necessary changes that are made, and then the adoption of the budget, and that would conclude the budget process for this year, which would be the budget for 2026. I always like to remind everybody every year, the education fund is kind of dictated by ESSA, which is basically dollars that directly go to the classroom. So those are all funded by state tuition and miscellaneous revenues, because I know sometimes out in the community people think that like we take out bonds or things like that, we can use that to pay teachers, and you cannot. They're very limited in what you can do. And so those funds are the state tuition funds and some miscellaneous revenues like interest, fees we get for field trips, stuff like that kind of goes into those. So those cover anything classroom related, teacher salary benefits, principal salary benefits, aides, secretaries, treasurers, all the things listed on there. If we had a curriculum director, which we used to, which I thought I took that line off, sorry. Our educational programs like special education, gifted education, driver education, our preschool program fits in here too, as does some of our educational technology. So some classroom technology also fits in that. You're also allowed to transfer money to cover a portion of these from operations to education. However, that's nothing that's really ever happened because usually we go the other way due to the law changes they made back in 2018.
Just to clarify,
Yeah.
so the state tuition is just to clarify this, is
Yeah.
the per student money? that we get
Correct.
from the state.
So what the legislature approves every year in per student money, that's what uses to fund this fund. Operations fund. So the operations fund generally covers operations. The monies used to fund this one are property tax dollars. And then like excise tax, so the stuff you pay like when you go to the driver's branch for your car and all, those types of things are what fund this. So this does not get any state money like a tuition thing like that. This is all property tax and other tax funds, as well as other miscellaneous revenues. So like our SAS program runs through this side just because of how the law says we get to do things. So our after-school program's funded this way. That's primarily it. There's not a whole lot of revenues for this side. That covers the central office staff, so everybody that works in this building, all custodians and maintenance, utilities, insurance, transportation, buildings and grounds, operational technology. So that's exciting stuff like fixing your HVAC and those types of things. Legal, and then any type of equipment purchases. So many, many years ago, before they changed the laws, and I think it was 17 and applied at 18, you used to take parts of a lot of these, like central office came out of the education fund, which back then was the general fund, custodians, maintenance, part of your utilities, some of like a lot of these different things were taken out of that side. When they changed the law and moved it, they reduced, essentially, they added cost to the operations fund without any revenue. So to be able to cover all those things, they allow us to transfer part of our education fund money over to operations to cover it. So generally speaking, every year, we transfer money from education operations because a lot of the expenses here used to be on what we would have been the education fund, which was the general fund. So that's the reason behind making those transfers.
Makes makes sense.
Assessed valuation, I didn't look today, as of yesterday, the auditor has not published our AV. For the 2026 budget though, I went through and took 85% of the 2025 value, which is in line with a safe number compared to what they said could potentially happen to us. In speaking with other counties this year, they've been all over the map. Hamilton County went up like 12%. I talked to Superintendent from Shelby County, they went down 4%. So it's been all over the place in terms of what's happening to counties right now in terms of their AV. So we'll find out. The other piece I think is interesting, if you look just like the historical aspect, I think is neat to see that how much our AV has increased over the years. And that is a direct result of when people get assessed, that's the county assessing you, and has zero to do with the school corporation or any other public entity that's raising tax money to try to cover costs. So that's purely based on what the assessors have done. And they have a state thing they have to follow too. So I don't want to throw them totally on the bus because there's
Sure.
laws that they follow that they have to use to determine values. But we've seen a really nice healthy increase in assessed valuation in our district, so that's been good, which is about to come to a screeching halt, but that's happened. So I thought it was important to try to run through the changes for 2026. So when I post this, so this presentation I will post online after tonight, but I'd like you guys as the board to see it first and community that comes to the meeting. But this will be publicly available so anybody can come in and read it and look at it. Senate enrolled Act 1, which was passed this spring, was done to reduce property tax for property owners, which all makes sense. I mean, I think everybody's behind, yeah, we'd like to pay less in taxes. But when you pay less in taxes, that means somewhere somebody's getting less money. And we happen to be one of those entities that will be receiving less money. So a couple things they did was that property tax deduction. They did a standard homestead deduction that they're phasing out with a supplemental deduction. So that'll help lower those bills. There's a new supplemental homestead deduction. And then they changed ag property and non-homestead property rates. So they changed those two to go down, as well as a business personal property, which will be phasing out for a lot of businesses over the next few years. So really they've done a lot of different things to try to drop those assessed values so you're not paying as much in property tax. Excuse me. The byproduct of this is, with the assessed values going down, the problem kind of becomes when we have bonds that we've taken out and they're like mortgages and our payments are spread out over 20 years. So those are kind of already written. You can't do anything about it. So your income's going to go down, but your house payment's still the same. So to be able to collect the money we have to collect to make those payments, that means the rates are going to go up. And there's nothing we can do about that because we have to make those payments by law. So it's interesting how one law changed and affects all the other laws, but the rates aren't going to go up. If the assessed valuation comes in lower. If it comes in higher, so we go up again this year, which we don't know yet, but maybe it'll hold steady or even drop a little bit. We'll have to see what that looks like. So what are the types of things we're trying to do to react to these changes? So one thing we did, first of all, when I took over, is we did a reduction in staff. So we combined a lot of things in this office. So superintendent, assistant superintendent were combined. We didn't fill the curriculum director. A couple academic coaches left. We did not refill those. And when you put all that together, which actually comes from two different funds, but they do help, they're linked with the transfer, and we can offset some things. That's about a $600,000 savings between the two funds, which is a nice substantial savings on that. Other things, we're currently, the board approved last month refinancing the bond, one of our bonds, so we're trying to reduce that by a few $100,000. So that should help offset a little bit of cost there. The changes in transportation, so that happened to be a godsend change that we weren't expecting, but when we were able to take out the bonds to buy the buses, that's reducing our monthly payment to transportation, so those funds can now be recouped back into operations, which I'm hoping, we still have a lot of things out there to know exactly what everything's going to cost as we start paying everybody and doing maintenance and keeping track of things, but I'm hoping to see at least a $600,000 a year savings in transportation. So you start piecing those two together, you're up to about 1.2 million in savings that we're working hard to try to save money so that we can keep the rates lower and not have to do any types of anything else. Couple other things with the bonds that we just took out. To buy the buses, we're doing some building fixes. So as we talked about, the high school is getting new controls, so we can actually control temperature. And the gymnasiums, the auditoriums, because our electric bills skyrocketed when that system failed and we didn't have the couple $100,000 to fix it. So we're gonna fix those. So I believe over the course of years, we'll recoup that money back and lower costs on electricity and gas. And then the other piece is, we have no major construction projects, and we've done a lot of things around here. I feel like the buildings are in pretty good shape. I mean, would we like to redo the high school some? Yeah. But it's one of those deals where if you don't have the money to do it, and it's not, a necessity, that we're not looking to do a lot of new things. We're gonna try to live on what we have. And then if something does happen, or if we get a boom in population, and, more assessed valuation type of deal, we can look at those things. But right now, we're just gonna try to live within our means. So to give you an idea of overall numbers, these are just the last few years. I always try to do this every year to be like, the difference being where we advertise does not ever come into where we certify. So what the numbers I'm giving tonight will always be high. So I don't want anybody to freak out and be like, you're gonna do what? Because it never comes in that way. It always is lower because of how the assessed valuations work out on where that piece is together. So that's just like a little historical look. A couple people have mentioned before the fact that like it's gotten tighter in some terms on some of those. I've gotten better at budgeting. And I found out a few years ago when it came to how they changed some of the game, we used to intentionally budget high in operations, and now we know exactly what we're gonna get. And so I'm like, why go through the circus act of trying to do something that I know what the number's gonna be? So we just try to get way more accurate on all those types of things to get closer. So I would expect our certified budget to be close to that number, but it'll probably be a little bit lower. And then the other piece is always, and then the budget is an approved appropriation. In other words, it's what we're allowed to spend. We're not trying to max out our budget every year and spend it all, because we want to have something saved back for when things happen. You've got a little something on the saving side. So that's why we always spend less than what we actually budget. Circuit breaker, so the circuit breaker tax caps, that's the amount of money that we don't collect. And every year I say, circuit breaker is great for me when I live in my house. It's not so great for me when I come to work. So it's the amount of money we don't get to collect because of how high that our tax rate goes over the top of what people's 1%, 2%, 3% caps are based on where they are. Last year, we had a it's actually this year, a $720,000 circuit breaker loss estimated. We actually came in, we're gonna lose about $707,000. Next year, they're estimating us to lose about $1.2 million. However, when they change the law, that $1.2 million will be spread out between the debt fund and the operations fund, because when they passed the law, I guess it was much like many, many years ago when they passed, that they didn't factor that in. There's talk that they may go back and do that. Normally, all of that money comes out of operations. For 26, out of the 1.2, it's somewhere between 300,000 and 400,000 will actually be coming out of debt. So we will lose that. But we have a cash balance in there of over $1 million, so we will be safe. We won't have to come up with something to pay the bills. We'll have the money there. But just to let you know, overall, it's about 1.2 million. The only way to lower that number, and that number is a shared number between every taxing entity type of deal. So if the town of Pittsboro raises their tax rate and we lower ours, we may still not see any effect of saving money, on circuit breaker because they decided to increase theirs for some reason, or if the county does it. So it's like a shared situation. So you got to get everybody playing the same game if you really want to start saving money on how that piece works.
And how does that ever happen?
Not necessarily, because there's not a whole lot of talking, you know what I mean, like everybody kind of does their budget on what they need.
Sure.
And so traditionally, that's not been a huge savings yet.
So remind me, I know that there was, with the new legislation, that's, that if you took out a bond during that year, then you couldn't split that loss, the circuit breaker loss between the two funds?
They changed it, so it will be this year.
We are
splitting it.
They are splitting it.
Right. Now
So
we'll
was
see
that
what the
last year?
legislature, no, traditionally it's not been like that. Traditionally, it's all come from operations. This year, when they passed the new law, they didn't say anything about not splitting it, so it's being split.
Okay, but that didn't have anything to do with whether or not you'd taken out a bond that
No.
year? Oh, okay.
So these are the rates, just to give a historical look, where we've advertised, what our goal has always said, and then we're certified. In the past, we've been able to, whatever we think our goal is, come in less than, so that's always been really, really nice. We've always advertised high and come in lower, and without having any idea what it looks like this year in terms of AV, it does make it a little more like, not sure, because we don't know if we're gonna be high or low on that, but we're advertising to come in at $1.7921 for a tax rate. That is not gonna happen. The goal is probably gonna be somewhere around $1.22. Last year, we were at $1.16. Once again, some of this will depend upon if we see an AV increase or a decrease, and right now, I don't know what that looks like. But it won't be nearly as high as where this process was, it will be tonight. So, just to run through some of the numbers. So our budget estimate in the education fund to spend next year is a cap, $14,962,000. We've always traditionally kept that transfer the exact same number for years now of 1.40153 that goes from education operations to keep operations afloat. Without that, it would be bad, bad, bad news. So we're keeping that afloat this way. Last year's budget was $14,818,000. So essentially, part of the increase on this is due to, and this is another moving piece that's been thrown into the mix, that the textbook adoption monies are now being thrown into our monthly payments. So last year, we got an actual payment for textbook adoption. Now they factored it into your payment. And so we've got to have to try to figure out exactly what that number looks like, but you can only spend those monies on textbook and classroom-related things. So the game has gotten more fun in terms of trying to figure all this out. But that's where the budget number really has kind of gone up. Debt service, this year's budget is 8.873. Last year was 7.7, year before 7.1, 2023 was 10.9, so we had that big, big bond fall off. This year's increase is 100% related to buying the school buses. So if anybody asks, why are you guys upping my thing? We had to buy the school buses, and over $1 million payments coming next year to pay, because it was a $2 million, or $3 million total, but we had to pay a huge piece of the buses off year 1 and year 2. So the increase is solely because we bought school buses. Operations budget. Last year, we were at 8.569. Like I said, we've just increased quite a few costs, so I'm trying to be more mindful in our budget to decrease what that looks like. So we're looking at about 7.533 million spend, and that's just because we're trying to be tighter on it, but we also have cost savings. So that's what we're looking at, trying to save those monies. And then rainy day. Rainy day has not changed in years. You would have thought we'd had a few rainy days to use, but it's always that one where you're like, if I go into it, I never get it back again. It's like, when is a real rainy day? But we'll be back next year with a budget estimate of about $406,000. That's basically the entire rainy day fund, because I went back and made a change this year. Back, we're not going to spend any of it this year, most likely. So I was able to reappropriate things and make that look a little different, but that's basically the entire fund. So we've kind of got an extra $400,000 sitting there for the direst of emergencies.
Really, really rainy.
Yeah. I'd say we've had some rain, but this is the one you can't recover from.
Yeah.
So that does exist to make sure we have a little something on hand to try to help shield us. And finally, I just wanted to put this in there that, honestly, the process has changed, and I know we've had folks come and tell us that we won't know the total effect of everything that occurred with the legal situation until probably the end of '26. So we're doing the best we can to put forth an educated guess to keep school going. And so we won't know until we get some rabies in on what that's going to look like, but the future is going to be even more shaky in terms of trying to figure out exactly what's happening. So that's why we continue to look to minimize our costs so that we can try to keep patrons' tax rates as low as possible. Then every year I like to run through real quick. We'll do this again next month, but at least this gets it out there. So if anybody's reading through and they have questions, and they're like, what are you doing? We can at least address some of that. So for the capital assets plan, and this is tiny. These are things we've always kind of had on, you know, in terms of like something we'd like to look for. This would be stuff that we would actually buy out of the operations fund. Makes this a little different because we don't have much money in the operations fund to go out and buy stuff, because primarily all the operations fund money is used to keep the school moving between salaries and fixing things and stuff like that. Generators have always been something we've looked at to possibly need, so we continue to put those on the list. We definitely are probably looking at a maintenance truck or a transportation truck, because now that we've taken over buses, that's one thing that they've said is like, if something happens to a bus and we gotta go fix it, I gotta have something to get there that's got the tools I need in it. And I'm like, yep, great point. So that's probably. Huh?
What did they use before? They just had their
The
own?
company that owned it had their own.
Yeah,
They use their actual own trucks.
gotcha.
So now that it's ours, we're gonna have something that they can use for that. Which on the side, we can use as a maintenance truck too, to help plow snow and do things like that if it's needed, but
Correct.
they need to have something available. And then our driver education car, they're both, there's a limit on how many years, it can't be older than 10 years, and we got one that's coming soon. And every once in a while, there are a few lights come on, so I'm putting that on the list because it's supposed to be a 3-year plan. Like, yeah, we may have to go and replace one of the drivers.
How many cars do you have?
2. And they're running, we were running, I don't know how many hundreds of kids to drivers ed here. So it's a lot of kids, they spend a lot of time on the road, but there's a lot of kids getting through driver's ed.
Yeah.
So it's been good. And then these would be more projects, if we ever, once again, find the money to do some of these things, but like our intercoms and PAs at the middle school and high school are fairly old. I know the middle school is original.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and that building's 27 years old now, which seems new, but time flies.
Yeah, it sure does.
PES, when they took out wall units a long, long time ago, if you ever drive over there and look, there's pieces of metal over where the wall units were in there. We've replaced some of those holes, but it'd be nice to be able to fill in the rest of them, because if you go in those rooms in the winter and feel next to the bookcases where the units used to be, it's a little chillier than everywhere else. We've always had a dream of being able to have a few more audiovisual stuff in the cafeterias and gyms in middle school and high school, just for meetings, and there are larger areas where we could be able to do some things like that. PES, the sidewalk between there and PPS could really stand some help. At some point, I do want to seal the parking lot at PPS, so that's another one. Playgrounds to be refreshed would be nice, and then we've added this year, just, originally we had that concept that we were going to redo the pool. As we said earlier, I think construction projects are gone, and I don't know that we're going to be able to do that. So being able to try to get a few things upgraded at the high school pool to try to make that the best we can, we put on the list. And then finally, the PES gym floor is getting near where we may have to do something about it. So
Is it original?
I don't think it's original, but it's pretty old. And it's had a little water damage here and there. So eventually we're going to have to look at possibly doing something with it, but we'll have to see. But these are also supposed to be for like the next 3 years. That's why I try to think forward a little bit on what that looks like. Is there any questions so far on any of this?
No, you're doing great.
No, it's a great list. I mean, you know, like, I feel like you've really well thought out.
And there are things that could come up that we don't think about, but there's the kind of like plans to be like, okay, these are some of the more big needs that we see. And then last, normally, this has been a nothing show. However, now, there's a whole lot more to this one. And so, we have all our fun buses on here. However, still, the only ones we really got to worry about at this point are the 4 that are owned by the school corporation. And we are eligible to take 139, which oddly enough is the bus I've been driving for everything, and I love that bus, and it runs great. It's 161 and 162 are the 2 scary ones, and they're the ones that aren't really eligible to 2028, but they have a few more problems. So in 2026, we still have, that bus is still eligible, you know, in terms of like it's past 12 years, so you can buy a new one. Guesstimated about 100,000. That's the ballpark idea. It kind of depends on what bells and whistles and what you get on a new one. But they're definitely getting close to needing some help on some of those. The rest of them all on here that we just purchased, they're not eligible for quite a while.
Good.
Oh, with the exception, I'm sorry, the 2 yellows, but the yellow, they don't have very many miles on them. And so they're actually in really good shape too. So the concept of possibly getting one little white bus is on the table. We'll just have to see how things shake out next year.
Okay.
For this one. And that's what I got.
Great.
Do you have any questions?
I think so.
Awesome.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
This, budget tools, is that next on there?
Public comments on this, if anyone has any.
Okay, any public comment concerning the 2026 budget? Okay. So we didn't need to go over this one? that's
The
on-
budget totals is just the actual posting of the numbers that I had to do by law.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Okay. So if there's no comments or questions, then we will close the budget hearing and open the regular board meeting, and we're ready for the superintendent report.
Hey, back to me. So I want to give everybody a transportation department update because, you know, it's been fun. Our new transportation director started yesterday. Jenny Clark came to us from Plainfield, the assistant director. She survived day 2. Talked to her today. She seems in great spirits. Things are going well. We are getting all of our routes covered right now, and we haven't had to cancel one with the exception of we've had a couple weeks ago where we had a driver had an appointment or two. But we've been covering everything. So I calculated at one point, and this was like over a week ago before I drove route last week all week, that we'd only missed, and I'm counting elementary separate from high school, middle school, we'd only missed like 10 routes total this year. And we've covered somewhere in the 70s. So I understand people can be unhappy, and I get that. I mean, my kids go here too, and one day the driver for my kids couldn't do it, but I covered that one. Because I could fit that many kids on a little white bus. And that's always the threshold is, can we fit enough kids on 1 or 2 of those buses? Once it gets to like the 60s and 70s range, there's nothing I can do. I can't get that many, we don't have that many extra white buses to be able to get those kids home. And that's when we have to cancel a route. But so far, that's been good. Our new director has filled in the last 2 days in the mornings driving a route, trying to help out for
has
somebody.
CDL.
Yeah, she has her CDL. So, once we get everybody back, I'm hoping to be able to cover some of these types of situations with, you know, she can help us. We also have multiple people working on getting theirs. So we're working on that, and then we're trying to find some folks who can possibly fill in as subs. So we're trying all we can to try to make sure we can keep the buses rolling. I actually, talking to other districts, I feel pretty good, because like we have covered most of them. I know other districts cancel them, and
All
so
the
I
time.
feel like it's,
So when you're talking to other districts, are there superintendents driving the bus?
no.
I didn't think so. I didn't think so.
Most
So
of them
thank
look
you,
at,
Dave.
most of
I
them
think
look
you
at me
said-
like I'm crazy.
Yeah, I bet they do. So this was your first day not
This is my first day
driving
since
in 2 weeks?
the second day of school.
Not driving around.
There were other days I didn't. It's the first day in 2 weeks I have not driven a route or
Yeah.
been on a bus. But I've offhand, since the second day of school, been filling in here and there, or,
Right.
yeah.
And you've been the director, so thank you for
Thank
stepping
you.
up and
Yes,
doing
thank you.
that.
Your leadership has
Yeah.
what's gotten us through this tough.
Not
It
everybody.
is not
can.
No, they wouldn't.
noticed by the community either.
Well, thanks.
Yeah.
I've said it, I just want that to be like, I want kids in school. It's the important part, like, kids need to go to school, it's good for kids, they're learning, but it's also good for them just socially and everything else that goes on in their lives. They need school, I think that's important, and so we do everything we can to get them here.
You are very, very appreciated for
Yes.
many, many reasons, but
Yeah.
this one's focused on transportation.
Thank you. I'm sorry if the superintendent pieces have slipped a little bit.
No, never.
The other piece, the next one I wanted to talk about, normally this was done in August, and because August was, August this year, I didn't get to do this. And so I put together another little presentation, so you have to listen to me for a little bit longer. But I think it's important to recognize everything that goes on in our buildings and what our teachers do, and what our students do, and our aides and administrators, everybody to drive the academic achievement we have here. And I'm going to go about this differently than it's been done in the past. So just so you know, this is not the same presentation people have always seen. So basically, I want to kind of go over what we did in 2025. And so the background, I felt like every year we discuss how students have done, and a lot of times it seems very centralized on iLearn or just iRead.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't, while those are very important and I appreciate everything that's done, as a father of a 5th grader, 6th grader, and now a 10th grader, for me, I like to know the whole picture. Like, I want to see what my child is getting through the entire academic experience. Like, how are they going to come out at the end? Because, and ultimately, that's the goal. That I want every child to graduate from Tri-West to be able to go do what they want to do and be equipped for that, no matter what that is for them. Hopefully it's a positive influence in the community, but I mean, that's what I want them to be able to reach the dreams that they have.
Not just pass one isolated test.
Correct. This is not about one test. This is about your educational journey and you being able to get there. And so as I sat thinking about it, I'm like, this would be interesting to see how does Tri-West, Northwest Hendricks fit into that? Like, what does that look like? Because I know before we've talked about iLearn, we rank here. iRead, we rank here. I think rarely you've heard how we did on SAT, every once in a while. But what does that total picture look like? So the 3 tests that we look like, that we're tested on, here's the school district, is iRead. It's given in 2nd and 3rd. I'm a huge believer that everything you do, K through, all the way up, is a piece of that. And I'm also, as I told the staff day one, I think I've told you guys this, and I'll tell anybody this, the most important thing we can do is make sure our children can read. That's number 1. They've got to be able to read, because that's the gateway to the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the first test, to look at our scores and we get scored on. Next would be iLearn, which they do 3 through 8. As you know, everything builds, so it's I view those as a continual process as well. Excuse me. And then finally, SAT's grade 11. Also, not just the 11th grade teachers, because I mean that's an evaluation of your kind of your entire academic career. Like, if you get to be the spring of your junior year, you're almost done. Like, this is where you're at. So I took all of these tests and took our scores. And so just to go over a couple things, just to make sure everybody understands this. With iRead, they passed new legislation that last year was the first year. If by the end of 3rd grade a child did not pass iRead, they're held back. So it's a high stakes test. To be able to move on to 4th grade, you have to pass that. We now give it in 2nd and 3rd grade. Last year we had approximately 80% of our 2nd graders passed it. And once you pass it, you're out. So if you pass it in 2nd grade, you don't have to go back and take it anymore. Also, if you fell in a certain category of taking it in 2nd grade, I can't remember the exact terminology, but I would call it below. We had summer school. Those kids got to attend. It was optional for the parents to choose, but almost everybody's child attended. And then we put together a plan for those kids, which is really nice to be like, okay, you're weak in these areas. So we could put together a learning plan for the child. You know,
Individual.
exactly. So through 3rd grade, we can really help the kids in the areas where they're struggling in to make sure they get over the hump. This past year, we had 3 kids that didn't pass. The year before, we had 0 kids. So we've always done a pretty good job. Like 98.5% of our students passed iRead. So I feel like that's excellent work by all the people involved. The kids working hard at it, because I know my daughter took it, both my girls had to take it, and they worked hard at it. They studied for it. And the teachers doing everything they can do with the aides, just the entire staff, our coaches, administrators, everybody that works hard to make sure our kids are successful. So that's iRead was the first one. iLearn is given every year, grades 3rd through 8th. The big ones that everybody keeps track of are like the ELA parts, so the language arts and the math. However, they're also given social studies and science. So science is given in 4th and 6th, social studies is given in 5th. So those are also pieces to this that most people skirt right over and don't even talk about. I won't say that I feel like there are certain school districts who focus very, very, very hard on the ELA and math and totally don't worry anything about the other, but it's all important stuff. If you're going to test somebody over it, it's important. So being able to figure out how our kids do in those areas, that's important because, once again, it leads up to the SAT, and you've got to learn things to know all those pieces. We did a great job on those. We were 5th in the state overall for ELA and math, because that's kind of the one they always combine and tell you. The state does not combine social studies and science in any of that, because it's not given in certain grade levels. So they just do the ELA and math because that's the only one. But we finished 5th as a district in the state. We actually had, again this year, just like last year, we did have a few grade levels that were 1st in the state in their areas. So that's fantastic. It's just amazing, everybody working so hard, and just so thankful for everything that everybody does. SAT, we probably all took SAT. It's the test they give every year as juniors in the spring. Language, arts, and math areas. In 2025, we ranked 8th amongst the traditional public schools. So I had to pull out a couple of the privates, and there's a couple public charters that fit in there too. But as a traditional public school, I was here comparing apples to apples, we were 8th. So my thought process became, hey, how does our district compare if you take all of this, like I said, and put it all together? And where do we place? And like, what do we look like? So if we want to evaluate ourselves and just say, like, how do we do? And I knew this was going to be too tiny to see. But it's available in your process, your page.
Yeah.
We finished 3rd out of all school districts in the state of Indiana, behind Zionsville and Carmel.
We're never gonna.
And so I'm I'm very proud of the fact that all the work that our students, our teachers, our instructional aides, the coaches, the principals, everybody does, like, we finished 3rd in the state compared to everybody, when you combine all of this. And I know sometimes, and you can see where those numbers fit, but I'm gonna point something out because I think it's the main driver difference, which goes back to, I say this because it's a big deal to me. If you go to Zionsville or Carmel, the kids do really, really well as they get older. But if you look at the iRead score, those are their rankings. It's not very good.
Yeah, that was my question. So that is their.
That is their state ranking. And that state ranking I did was with all the schools. I did not take out the private schools and the charter schools. I left everybody in. And so we have the highest ranking out of these top 10s for iRead, which makes me feel, as I said, because I think that's so important that kids know how to read.
We can read.
Like, our kids know how to read. Now, there are other schools that do better, but you also got to remember, like, we're talking 3 kids didn't pass. So, I mean, that's pretty good. And those kids take it over. We have a plan in place for them to continually try to get everybody over that hump.
This is how we.
So, the other piece I think is fun, not to go tell on people, but I know when you live around here, and everybody's like, Brownsburg's the best, Brownsburg's the best.
I already told Abby.
I'm like,
Pointed that
well,
out.
no, you're not.
Yeah.
When you put the whole picture together on what your kid gets for an education, academically, we do a great job here. Now, I'm going to put my preface in here, and if you've seen some of the stuff we've done out, Mr. Fry's helped, and we've had things that we put out on our website and stuff, I'm a huge believer that this is just a piece. Because as I said before, school's good for kids, and it's good for kids not only because you're academics, but because you come, you make friends, you get involved, you learn things, and it's everything I think that we all want for anybody is to be an involved citizen. And I think you learn that in school. And becoming involved in different activities and sports and clubs and whatever interests you. So to me, this is a piece. And the other piece is that involvement part. And continue to help our kids get opportunities to learn outside the classroom, but learn through other avenues. So, that was my final conclusion.
Okay.
That this is a fantastic school. And I know sometimes, and I hear it, and you guys hear it, and we all hear it, that there's days you're like, this place, and you hear that, you know what I mean, and this is wrong, and this is wrong, and this is wrong, and I get that. There are things that we can definitely improve, and we will continue to work to try to get better. However, peering behind our curtain and looking at the things we got going on, it's a great place to go to school. I'm very proud. My kids go here. I'm proud to work here. And I think it's just, I mean, sometimes I think you do have to sit back and look and be like, oh, the grass is really green right here. Like, it's a good, good thing.
And some days when you're in the thick of it, your grass is brown, and then
Correct.
when you can reflect.
So next piece will be like, how can we market this? But we don't market it too much, but yeah.
So I like that presentation, like simplify and bringing it all in one. That was
Yes.
clear.
It's very, very nice.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Oval.
So up next, we have our consent agenda. So that has meeting minutes from our work session on August 12th, collective bargaining hearing August 12th, regular session on August 12th and a special session on August 22nd. We have payment of claims, accounts payable, bond proceeds payable, fund report, appropriations report, revenue report, transfer report, payroll report, donations and sponsorships. We have Vandalay Technology Group donated $1,800 for the high school for new basketballs. We have the personnel reports and then the student transfer requests. That's it. Does anybody have any questions, comments on the consent agenda?
No.
Okay, can I get a motion to approve?
Yes.
Okay, first from JD,
Second.
second from Brad. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Okay, consent agenda passes. Next on action items, we have the Pittsburgh primary 25-26 ECA approvals.
So those were the ones that I didn't get before summer break happened. And then August was August, so I didn't get on the agenda in August. So basically, it's just, we have to approve these every other, we've done for every other building, just so they can operate their ECA funds.
Okay. Any discussion on that? Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the Pittsburgh primary 25-26 ECA approvals. Second from Jamie. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Okay, that passes. Next, we have our 25-26 calendar changes.
So this has been something that I think the board's wanted, and I've wanted as well. So essentially, what I'm asking for is for the board to approve changing the 25-26 and 26-27 calendars to take the e-learning day that has existed, and that e-learning day would be a full day of school for everybody K through 8. The high school would be on e-learning that day, except for the juniors who come in to take their SAT. Because those juniors get spread around, so all the high school teachers end up proctoring it, so it's not like they're all shoving in the gym type of deal, like every teacher has a group, so it's hard to break that up, and I discussed that with Mr. Tricker, and he goes, it actually works out really well, the way we have it scheduled and how we do it. I said, okay, so the high school would still be on e-learning, so basically the freshmen, the sophomores, and the seniors would still be on a asynchronous learning day
At home.
at home. Meanwhile, K through 8 all ride the bus, all come to school, they get a normal day of school. So the one piece that goes with this, just make sure, throwing everything out there, school corporation gets 3 asynchronous days that we can use at our discretion for like snow day makeups and things like that. K through 8 would still have access to 3 asynchronous days. High school would only have 2. I discussed with the association before this meeting, we had a meeting, and the high school representative from the association, I asked her, I said, so my initial thought would be, would high school staff be willing to do a synchronous day on that third one? Because we would still burn the first 2. And when it was your turn on the third one, would you guys be willing to do that? She goes, I will take that back and ask, but I'm pretty confident. Because I feel like before when we had synchronous issues, it was way more elementary related.
Right.
2,
High
these,
schoolers can do it.
the synchronous day is going to be a snow day. Like, it's
Yeah.
not like you're going to be out having a great time. You may go sledding, I don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
But we're not using it just as a nice day outside when you can go. It's
Right.
going to be a day where the weather's awful.
Right.
So that's kind of how we lean, and I'll get feedback from them for sure. Otherwise, they'd have to come back and make up a day. So I got a feeling they're going to be really behind the concept, like, we can get on
Yeah,
for 4
sure.
hours,
On board
you know what I
for
mean,
one, yeah.
and do our synchronous learning with the high school. They seem to be behind that, so I think most people would agree with that. So that's what I'm asking for the board approved, to change that e-learning day to only apply to high school, K through 8, is going to school, 25-26 and 26-27.
Please let me be the first one to approve this.
Turn on your microphone. First I have to
Okay.
say, first I have to say this, is there any discussion besides the amen from Jamie?
No, there is no discussion.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Hoball, for seeing the value in our K-8 students attending school and running business as normal. I appreciate you.
Is that your motion?
That is my motion to pass this.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second from
There we
everyone.
go.
Okay. All those in favor say
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same
Glad I'm on
sign.
your left.
I know she was spraying my hand. Okay, that motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Hoball.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Hoball.
Okay. All right, any, thing else here under discussion items?
Can we just give Mr. Hoball more props? I just feel like we can't thank you enough for everything that you have done for our transportation director position and how you've been keeping us afloat. I don't think that everyone in the community knows everything that you've done to keep Northwest Hendricks going. And we just can't thank you enough. You've done so much.
And to do all that in such a short period of time, the amount you have done with literally, I mean, no notice is, I don't know anyone else that could have done it, honestly.
I don't.
There's been lots of no-notice things.
You've been doing the
haven't
best you could.
I have, and I have been doing, and that's all I do every day.
Shoot from the hip.
Try to do the best I can. Now, at some point, this best I could is gonna tail off a little bit, because I just recovery, but yeah. I appreciate, thank you.
I mean, I
Thank
knew
you.
we were gonna be in great hands with you, but, I mean, you've blown all my expectations out of the water.
When I set the bar too high.
I know. But you are phenomenal in all facets. I mean, I'm just so impressed by you.
Thanks.
Yes, thank you.
And this last thing you did, that just
Over the top.
over the top.
And put the icing on the cake.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank
you.
Thank you.
Jamie is very pleased.
I'm
Okay.
very pleased.
Calendar items, we have a board meeting on October 7th at 6:30 right here. Is there anything else? Okay. Thank you, everyone. Meeting adjourned. Oh, shoot, I have to do the motion.
I'll make a motion.
Okay,
Second.
motion from Brad, second from JD.
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned, thank you.